Well, happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to Logic Live again. So great to see everybody. It's great to be here. It's a beautiful day in the Hudson Valley. It is, let me check my watch, it's 61 degrees and just beautiful, and the sun is shining. I don't know about your experience, but I saw here when I started the feed that the ad that like the algorithm decided to put on was for a home composting machine called Lomi. I'm definitely want to ask Randy about that. I think that turning waste into shit is something that he could possibly, let us all, be an expert on. And so I'm curious to get his take on it, but not today, because today we're talking tech, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, Valentine, it's so good to see you, man. I hope things are doing okay. There's Carlos, Richard Betts, all the way from New Zealand, Simon Holden, and Michael and Finn. I see Brooks, I see David, and I see Ralph. And hey, it's Adam Taylor. I apologize for my voice, everybody. I'm still getting over the effects of the COVIDs, so I'm going to do my best to keep my finger on the mute button, which will probably make Randy happy because that'll keep me quiet for most of the time. But I'll do my best to mute the coughing. But thank you for joining us today. We have a great show planned for you today. A lot of great stuff we're going to talk about. We're going to cover a lot of topics. And then at the end of the show, Randy and I have an amazing hardware announcement to make that we've been planning for a very long time. And we're just like super excited that this day has finally arrived. So, oh man, who else is here? There's Jeff. Oh, Jeff, thank you so much, man. I feel like the levels are better than they've been, and it makes me happy. All right, Randy, my friend, my partner, this dissolve is for you, buddy. Here we go. Logic Live 81. Oh man, you can't ask for better than that. It only took 81 times. Hi everybody, my name is Andy, and welcome to Logic Live number 81. We're talking tech. Let's get underway. This episode of Logic Live is brought to you by Synesys.io, solutions development, integration, and support, supporting flame artists since 1997. And it's also brought to you by our friends at AJA, together with Flame, since 2006. If anyone out there needs tech support, give Jack Horrocks a ring at jack@flametech.com.au for all your Flame networking storage or custom build needs. Jack is out there. And if you're in the market for anything Boris Effects has their NAB 2022 sale going on right now, and you can save up to 50% on everything that they offer. That's permanent licenses, subscriptions, absolutely everything. Just head on over to Boris Effects or boriseffects.com and take advantage of this amazing deal. It only lasts, I think, through the end of the month. It was one of those coughs. And while you're checking things out, check out the Logic merch store. We're going to give away some merch at the end of the show here. But now, with the weather changing, it's a perfect time to stock up on some Logic t-shirts, maybe a water bottle, or a lovely hat. You can find that at logic.tv and just click on the merch link at the top there. We want to give a shout out to all of our patrons on Patreon. We're now up to 124, right, Randy? 124 patrons on Patreon. We could not do this if it were not for you. Randy and I, when we set out to start Logic and build a community, we knew we could not do it without support. And we want to thank each and every one of you for making Logic not only the amazing place it is, but for enabling us to share this with the entire community. So thank you to all of our patrons. If you'd like to support what we're doing here at Logic for as little as $5 a month, head on over to patreon.com/LogicTV. Get yourself some discounts, some exclusive merch, and access to exclusive content. We normally do our patrons only shows, like patrons only Zooms after the show. Today, because we're talking tech and it's such a hot topic, we're going to do that on the Logic Discord. More about that in a second, because I want to give you the update on the forum. Here's some forum stats. I know this is always Randy's favorite part. We wouldn't have the forum if it wasn't for Randy McEntee. So here's some new forum stats for you for 2022. We're up to 1,096 users. That's up 9 over 2 weeks ago when I last gave you an update. 560,000 page views so far for the year. That's up 90,000 from 2 weeks ago. 700 new posts in the last 2 weeks. So that's 5,200 for the year so far. And we're up to 337 users on Discord. That's also, I'm guessing that the 9 people who became forum members also joined Discord. So I want to thank them. But if you haven't signed up for the Logic Discord, please do. You can go to forum.logic.tv, click the Discord link up at the top, and be a part of the conversation. And again, after the show, we're going to head on over there and continue the tech talk. on Discord so that everybody can be a part of it. If you haven't already checked it out, please, please, please check out it's Flame's 30th birthday, and the team at Autodesk put together what they're calling the Hall of Flame. I'm going to try to click on it here. You can get to it from the forum post at forum.logic.tv. If you look here on the site, there's this beautiful image, and then each one of these little yellow dots is something that you can click on and see or learn something about the history of Flame, from 30 years of Flame to like how the interface has changed over the years. Amazing milestones in the kind of the journey of Flame. There's also tributes to our friends Ivar and Jeff Huser, who we lost way too soon, and then stuff about Logik, about the user groups. It's just absolutely beautiful. So I encourage everybody to check this out. You can see it. They did a posting on the forum, and also our friends at Autodesk are running a little bit of a contest. If you leave a comment on the forum on this post with your favorite Flame memory, they're going to pick 30 people at random and give away like a Flame like gift bag or swag bag. So we want to thank them for that. It's really, really, really a beautiful thing. This is, believe it or not, friends, this is NAB week, and there's definitely going to be some Flame activity at NAB 2022. So if you are heading on over to NAB, be sure to, you can meet members of the Autodesk Flame team at the AWS booth, which is in the West Hall, booth number 3500. And our friend Brian Bailey has organized a Flame user meetup at the lobby bar at the Wynn Hotel, which is going to be tomorrow, the 24th, at 8 p.m. If you're there, please take some pictures. And then check them before you post them, but take some pictures and share them with the community so we can keep that Logic love just going. We have some new classes, some new Logic Academy classes for 2022 that I want to make sure everybody has a chance to check out. I did one called Beauty Techniques in Flame, where I covered a whole range of beauty topics. And Randy put out two Logic Academy installments. The first one is a video all about the machine learning time warp tool that was developed by our friend Andrei Toloshny. He goes into how to install it on various systems, and he takes you through the different features of the machine learning time warp tool. And then Randy also did a video on setting up PyBox. It's an amazing technology to connect Flame and apps like Nuke together so you can use them in the same pipeline. These join the other Logic Academy offerings, Connect to Conform in the image note from Jeff Kyle, and then Randy's other two videos, Intro to NDI and 8-Minute Aces. They're all available for free at logic.tv or youtube.com/logictv. And we want to thank our friends at Autodesk for sponsoring these videos. Speaking of content from Autodesk, the latest from the Flame Learning channel, Grant K, has a whole series of videos out covering the changes in the new Flame 2023. So definitely head on over to the Flame Learning channel and check those out. It's really some wonderful new developments. He had a whole series here on the changes and improvements that they've made to the animation channels. So definitely check that out, and thank you, Grant. All right, my friends, let's dive right in, okay? What hardware to invest in is always a hot topic for Flame artists. The options out there keep expanding, and what made sense for your business last year might not be keeping up with your needs this year. In the last few weeks alone, we saw the introduction of the Mac Studio, which came on the heels of the M1 Pro MacBook Pros, and everyone's already talking about or speculating what might be in the next Mac Pro, and if they should wait for that or if they should buy something now. Add to that Rocky Linux support makes running Flame on Linux easier than it's ever been, and new offerings from companies like Lenovo make you question if maybe now's the right time to switch to Linux. Maybe you can get more for your money if you do that switch from Mac to Linux. Flame is supported on AWS, and companies of all sizes are evaluating if going to cloud-based solutions might be better for them. The only right answer to all of these questions is to figure out what's best for your needs, both now and in the near future. So I thought it'd be fun and useful to gather together a panel of Flame artists from all over the industry, from freelancers who work at home to artists at larger facilities, and get their take on the current state of Flame hardware. Let me bring on the panel here. And we have, in this illustrious panel here, starting off in the upper right corner, we have my partner in crime, Randy McEntee. How you doing, Randy?
Andy, what's going on?
Oh, just happy to see you and happy to be here. I love Logic Live Sundays. Going clockwise around, we have coming to us from Parts Unknown with half-dressed people walking behind him. We have the always knowledgeable Alan Latteri. How you doing, my friend?
I'm well. I'm at the beach.
Amen, brother.
Yep.
What part of Jurassic Park are you in right now, Randy?
Exactly.
Alan, you're at the beach too. I'll see you in a minute.
Be right there. Save me a seat. And then continuing around, we have returning to Logic Live from his absolutely triumphant presentation on his publishing workflow. We have Josh Lawrence. How's it going, Josh?
Hi, how's it going?
Going
for
great.
having me. Yep.
And
Nice.
making his first appearance here on the show from what I'm hoping is sunny Santa Monica, California. We have Chris Noellert from AFX. How you doing, Chris?
Yeah, how's it going, guys? Good to see everybody.
What's up?
Great to see y'all. Before we get rolling, I just want to remind everyone that if you do have questions for any of the panel, feel free to put them in the Discord. I'm sorry, in the YouTube comments. We'll try to get to them, and if we don't get to it, just hold on to that question, and we'll cover it on the Discord afterwards. And don't worry about it; it's close after all. And finally, just remember to stick around to the end because Randy and I do have this amazing hardware announcement that we're really excited to make, and we want to make sure everybody's on for that. So I would like everyone to introduce themselves. Maybe we could pay off that bird. You know, Randy finally found a sound effect that maybe that I can add to my list of 4 that I've been using for the last 2 years. You know,
Roll tape.
I want to go around
Anytime
the room
anybody
here.
cracks a joke, you should be playing that sound.
Right?
Exactly.
Let's go around the room here. I want to have everybody introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about your company, the kind of work that you do, and your current hardware configuration. So we'll start with you, Randy.
Sure. Hi, my name is Randy. I'm a flame artist. I work
Randy.
hi guys. I work in my creepy Midwestern basement. I bought a Mac Flame a couple years ago. I got a couple Mac Pros, and then last year I went into the Linux side. So I've got a couple Linux machines, and I remote control studios' cloud machines and their on-prem machines on the West Coast and East Coast from Chicago. So I'm just kind of I was going to say super user, but I almost said stupor user. That's probably more accurate. So I'm a stupid user, and that's what I do.
Wonderful. How about you, Alan?
I'm a partner at Instinctual, and we're in Hollywood. And we do a lot of beauty work and fix-it work, along with doing theatrical trailers for Sony Pictures. And hardware-wise, we kind of started with the Z800s years ago and worked our way up through the 820s, the 840s, and now we're doing the Lenovo P620 Threadrippers.
Thank you much. Josh Lawrence, what about you?
Hi, I'm Josh. This is my basement here in New Jersey. I work for a company in New York called Assembly, which it started in September last year, and we don't really have that much office space because of COVID. And the company decided that they want to do Flame entirely in the cloud. So we started on Amazon AMIs, and we've got 7 Flames now in the cloud with connected storage. And I guess we're going to talk about how that's all put together a little later.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And Chris, what about you?
Yeah, Chris Noellert, creative director at AFX. Kind of similar to Alan and his birds. We kind of started along the C800 sort of pathway, 820s, got to the 840 sort of investment and decided to fuck this, we're hopping off. Started looking at like i9 offerings, looking at single chip machines that were, sort of outpacing the current HP offerings and GTX level cards. We kind of ended up going with a bunch of RTX Titans. So yeah, we're mainly automotive work, commercial work. And that's kind of where we're at.
Gotcha. Let me throw out like a first question as a talking point, and I'll start with you, Alan. What's your biggest consideration when you're looking at hardware? Is it price? Is it performance? Is it scalability, reliability?
Well, when we first started, we kind of were upstarting ourselves, and we didn't have a lot of money, so we did kind of go more for we always would buy the previous generation, which you can get great deals on. Between kind of local used market and eBay, we were very cost thrifty. But more recently, now it's just fuck it. I just want performance, and I want to, I don't want any roadblocks between, me having the ultimate shot. And so now we're doing the P620 Threadrippers because that's the craziest thing you can get right now. And we were
What
doing the 39. Well, I got a 3995, but all our new ones are going to be the 5995, which is just the beast, the most beast you can get.
Gotcha. And then is that something you could upgrade later if you wanted, like on the same machine? Is that something that's like socketable that you can swap out?
Yeah. So like the P620 that I have, even though it has the 3995, I'll be able to upgrade it to 5995 with just the BIOS update, which I did last Sunday. Happened to have bricked the machine, so
Oh,
now I'm
congratulations!
talking
That's why
to.
you're at the beach
Yeah,
today.
totally. Yeah. So actually, I'm requesting Lenovo just upgrade my machine to that because they don't have replacement motherboards for another 2 months.
Oh, gotcha. Wow,
Yeah.
Nice.
nice.
Wow.
Randy, what about you?
Alan, how
What's
have you
your-
found like how have you? I was
Sorry.
going to say just really quick, Alan, how
Go
have you
for it.
found like the remote sort of like diagnostics and like sort of management console for the Novos and stuff like that?
Well,
Does that sort of meet your
yes.
needs?
So the P620s, that's really a desktop platform, so it doesn't have out of band
Mm.
management really. They have
Mm.
something called Dash, but it's pretty basic, and honestly, I never even used that. So that's a consideration: is if you ever feel like you need to have out of band management or remote hardware control, then you
Hmm.
probably want to look at more of a rack form factor, which has it built in.
Okay.
And when I say hardware remote control, I don't mean something like RGS. It's much more low level, something you could actually get into the BIOS, so like pre-operating system basically. And then anything that's rack based is going to have that facility, and that's kind of an absolute if you're going to be in a data center and not next to the desks, because almost all our flames are next to our desks.
Cool.
What are you guys using for storage?
So we have two things, right? We have the centralized stone wire that I've discussed in a few presentations prior, which is a 4U72 SSD server that we made, and then we have our Supermicro 60 bay NAS that also has 4 additional NVMe bays for front end cache, and that's what we use. But none of our machines have local storage. Right, none of our flames have a local frame store, just the operating system drive only.
And you guys are going 40 gig to each node on the network basically, or?
So we have a 100 gig backbone, and then our servers, the SSD server and the NAS have 50 gig to the backbone, and then each workstation has 25 gigs.
Okay. That's actually a really, really smart setup, man. And like I watched through the presentation with the centralized stone and wire stuff that you did like years ago, whatever, and just see like you've been soothed sort of posting or whatever, which was really gracious of you, man, considering how like scathing you've been in the past, to actually like kind of roll one out. We're a little bit, kind of kind and whatnot. But I think it's from my perspective, it seems like that's got to be the way forward for a shop that's more than one machine. Like if you're more than one machine, that's got to be the way you progress, just to keep, that thread that came up not too terrible long ago about archiving and like keeping data archiving sizes down and this, that, and the other. When you start to look at that as a single point of ingress into the system and, single point for archiving and shared media, even if it's a managed workflow, I can't imagine that there's any other solution that makes any kind of sense. If you're working
No, it's the only solution.
And multiple.
And if I was just a single flame, I would still do it that way because your data is safe that way, right? Like when you do the centralized stone and wire thing, your workstations become dumb terminals, so you're never at the threat of losing data, right? If you work in the traditional flame way and you have to reinstall your operating system, you have to take all sorts of precautions so you don't lose your flame data. Right, I reinstall and I break flames all the time because of my experimentation. I never have to worry. And that's the power.
That's
of
actually wild. That's something I never considered about your centralized stone and wire solution. I only thought about it in the terms that Chris just mentioned, in terms of keeping your data, like the data bloat, to an absolute minimum, and you're never really wiring things. I never thought about it as your end user is really just a dumb terminal, and it has nothing to do with Oh, that's great.
We used to do that at Gloss. We had we were running. I think we were one of like 3 customers running central install. And so the machines themselves actually had no flame on them either. They were just CentOS boxes, and you had to like go to the SAN to launch flame. And that way we could blow away a machine. We could reformat it, take one offline, put another online, run as many different machines as we needed.
Well, let's. I'm going to go back to that question I had, and maybe we'll go to Chris because you're a similar size facility, maybe even a little bit larger than what Alan has going on over at Extinctual. What's the most important factor for you when you're considering hardware?
Jesus. I mean,
faith is definitely an important consideration.
Exactly. First, I begin with a prayer. No, I mean it's such an open-ended question, and I feel like, and I think this kind of goes back to the conversation we were having a little bit earlier, and it was just that I think you had this perception of what was actually important pre-COVID and pre-pandemic, and then you had a drastically changed vantage point after the pandemic set in, and we found out actually what really was important, not just to us but also to our clients, and to the process, and like, how do we actually get work done? What's the most efficient way of actually getting things done? So I mean, pre-pandemic it was absolutely like, oh, I gotta have fucking speed, it's gotta be fast, I gotta have like there was all this like, okay, like, no, I mean, I need to have like 2 A6000s in my Z840. There's like all this shit that was like inordinately important. And so much of it was predicated by the fact that you knew that you had all this other support infrastructure that was sitting around you that you could actually draw upon whenever you needed help. Like there's a couple of people on Macs. There were some other things that were happening. Like, you could just walk over here and grab this, that, and the other. What I think post-pandemic for me, it's actually been significantly more about pipeline and like reducing data duplication, reducing ingress, egress. Like, it's been more about process than it is actually about performance. So like when I call out Alan's Stone and Wire server, that's something that makes a lot of sense to me. Like in terms of like, I'm looking at more from the standpoint of like, I prefer to have machines that are, let's see if we can rephrase this. Like if I have a bucket of money, which everybody has a bucket of money, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And I have to subdivide it up into what's important for investments and whatnot. A large chunk, an increasingly larger chunk of that is actually going towards pipeline and hardware that I can actually use for making things, sort of flow and pipeline work better, as opposed to an additional couple cards. It could be that, like, if I go Threadripper, that's the same sort of price performance as two 3090s, so a handful of Threadripper render nodes that people can use for Arnold in the evening times actually kind of makes sense. Like, if you start to think about things, about the Lego pieces in a completely different way. So I don't know. I don't know if that really answered your question or not. I mean, I feel like now I think now to really kind of just say where I feel like most commercial houses are now, we need to have a mix of equipment that is relatively high performance, but then also allows us to do more with what we currently have sitting in front of us. Mm-hmm. I think there's been a lot of discussion about the Mac and Mac versus sort of Linux performance and stuff like that, and I think those are all kind of interesting in one way. I mean, it's fun to kind of compare benchmarks and this, that, and the other, but there also comes a point where it's like, I need to grab these things from here. I need to have Infinity in Photo, or like I've got Resolve here, I've got Houdini running here, I've got this, and it's all sitting in front of me, when I'm on a Mac. So that there's added benefit to that whole process. So anyway, babble.
I think, no, it's great, man. It's it's funny, like when we pretty much first started like doing Logic Live, when everyone was going at home, Randy came on and did like how to build your business at home. And he did hardware. Mm-hmm. It was, what do you need? And I remember back then the kind of like the mindset was, well, if I'm going to get a Flame, I'm going to need to have the biggest thing I could possibly afford with the most RAM that I could possibly afford and the biggest video card. And then he, you showed us, Randy, that you started running like benchmarks, started running iStat. You started looking at like how much of the resources that you bought you were actually using, and I think it's really more important maybe now to consider, that your investment needs to kind of be made in a way, or tailored in a way that fits your needs, knowing that you can always add more.
Yeah.
Well, I think go for it. I mean, I was going to say that I think that there's a certain amount of pipeline stuff that we've always kind of taken for granted as being flame artists, in terms of the fact that managed workflow is so fucking easy. We import some shit, we work on it. And I think that more than anything else, like COVID has kind of like just kind of brought to light a lot of the problems with the way that Flame actually handles media and fits into pipelines, even more so than it ever you did before. I mean, even people who are working at bigger facilities, even if you had F-Track, you know, and being able to go ahead and plug into that sort of environment, I think that, again, the pandemic has laid a lot of like truths bare, and it's that we have to figure out how to not just work faster, but work more efficiently. And spending money and time in pipeline and looking at, and I know we're gonna, you know, we can progress into Josh talking about the cloud, but I think that, you know, as segue to that, I feel like a lot of there's got to be some sort of time invested in actually figuring out not just cloud deployment for like AMIs and like spinning up Flames in the cloud, but also figuring out like how do you actually go ahead and expand your pipeline onto the cloud so that you can actually not just have to be spinning up, you know, instances of Flame on the cloud, but also having people working on their local machines and actually being able to really successfully integrate into private clouds and into, you know, what that actually means. So it's more about hybrid sort of technology than anything.
Yeah,
else.
that's the hardest like thing to solve. I know, like even when we looked at it, you know, when we first at Lively, when we first went home and everyone went remote, you know, you had there were certain things we did just to kind of get by, whether it was use Google Drive or Dropbox or it doesn't matter. We figured something out. Then when it became clear that we were going to do this for longer than 2 weeks, you know, the real question has been like, we have this enormous amount of infrastructure on-prem. It's not cost effective to duplicate that in the cloud just so, you know, it can be easier to copy files back and forth. So what do you do? And I don't know that there's one answer, but I did want to ask Randy, you know, you work by yourself at home. You're not a larger facility. You don't have all of these other concerns. And I was curious to hear for you, not only what is the most like important consideration when purchasing hardware, but I'd love to also hear how your needs have changed in the last 2 years.
Yeah. Well, I quit my staff job a month before lockdown or so. And I knew I wanted to buy a Flame. I knew I needed capability and capacity. I knew I needed to be able to do a lot of different things: camera tracking, email, spreadsheets, Flame, whatever. So I did what everyone should do, I think, if they're going to be going through this situation. I bought a Mac Pro. And a Mac Pro, iMac, whatever. It doesn't really matter at this point. But I just wanted something that I could focus on, not spending my time doing IT and doing a great job with meeting people and getting my name out there, networking and building a business. So I just wanted something that I would have taken a tax on the performance to just have access to, to be able to sleep well. And, when I bought my Mac Pro, it showed up a week later, and, within 2 hours I was doing billable work, and that was really important. But then as my
redundancy. Your point about redundancy in the first tech talk was actually one of the more important things I think you were talking about, is that almost everything you bought two of, and you had backups and backups of backups, and you were designing systems in order to make everything completely redundant, because that's one thing that you kind of miss when you go from a big facility to your basement.
Yeah.
And it's something you probably don't think about or you don't appreciate when you're at a facility and all that infrastructure and engineering and redundancy is built in. You don't appreciate that when all of a sudden you find yourself at home.
Well, what I was fighting is, because I'm in Chicago. I'm in the suburbs of Chicago. I'm not in a major market.
It's it's a lovely place.
Oh, I'm not.
The rich history and the fine people.
So I always wanted to inside joke. I never wanted to put my clients. I've spent last 2 years. I've only worked for Chicago clients maybe 20 days out of the last 200 or 300 billable days. So it's all been West Coast, East Coast clients. And in order to kind of extend my network, I never wanted it to feel like I was working at home. That's why I built a stupid room like this, so that it looked like I was in a studio or somewhere nice. And so, the redundancy is a thing, because people on the shows that I'm working on, their iMacs die and they're an NDA project. So what do? You take an NDA with you to the Apple store? Like, how does that work? So, I buy two, maybe
only
three
if
of
you tweet
everything.
about it.
I know. But that's a big part of it. And so it's, when we talk about hardware, it's like, you shouldn't talk about what you can afford. You should be talking about if you can afford 2 or 3 of them. So, you doesn't have to be both the spec. You could buy various specs. Anyway, that's how I've kind of built things, so that as I scaled and as I needed better horsepower, I could go from Mac and then go to Linux. But then I have a Mac backup, and then I have basically four of everything now. But that's what I need because of supply chains and deadlines. And I just basically need to kind of just sleep well and turn off when I can, so that I can have a life when I'm not working, which is rare, but it happens.
Oh, I think it's great. As Jeff here says that makes sense, Randy. But even I think more importantly, our friend Finn just says that Randy has more hardware than an average size Best Buy, which the people have spoken.
That's about right.
Yes,
I do.
Certainly.
I do. I've got two Mac Pros. I've got two Linux boxes. I've got two NAS. But that's what I feel like I need to be able to say no problem. And people can load me up with things. I've worked on Super Bowl ads from home. I've worked direct to agency, direct to corporate, direct to studio. I've remote controlled other people's stuff. I have a backup generator. I dug up my neighbor's yards to do dedicated fiber internet. So but that's the kind of silly stuff we have to do.
Dude, you just need a van at this point. Like, that's what you need. You just need an OB van and just fucking go on the road. Like,
that's it.
That's the only thing that's missing, actually.
It's like a mobile right. You should be like the food truck of flame artists, and just kind of set up everywhere.
I do have a 2011 Honda Odyssey, which I'm considering, but I can't get the Cheerio crumbs out of the bottom. So
you need to get two of them anyway, because the Odyssey.
Right. Thank you. I was going to say
that. In a fucking garage, this goes on.
Yeah.
Used car market. You can always say no problem.
Because you can say no problem to the kids, right?
Yes, completely.
I'm thinking Airstream personally, but yeah, whatever.
Totally.
I love it. Josh, I want to ask you this same kind of thing. What's the biggest consideration for hardware, and maybe that can be a good segue into your foray into the cloud.
So I'm not as technically savvy as you guys, and my perspective is basically kind of what Randy was saying, which is redundancy and dependability, and very much what Chris was saying about workflow, which I've always felt like is has been stumbling blocks to delivering jobs and getting things in and out very smoothly through Flame. Has always been like, when you're an island or if you've set up your studio with a bunch of islands, I feel like it's very difficult to collaborate, to scale up, to be able to work with other artists as need be, or to have producers jump onto what you're doing and help out with QC or with whatever, the in and outs. So when I used to work at a company called Gloss, and we set that up with central install, centralized headless Flame server, a centralized storage. And that really was the prototype to what we've been doing at Assembly, which is we kind of moved that entire idea to the cloud. And partly because everybody was already remote, and mostly because there is no rack space at the office. When Assembly started, there's a closet that's smaller than, I don't know if it can even hold a water heater. And there's basically no room for a bunch of computers. And there's definitely not room for air conditioning. And the building is old enough that repiping it for air conditioning doesn't make any sense. So they were like, well, we should go to the cloud because we can. And so they did. And it's been a very interesting learning curve to start out with. We had Amazon offers two different kinds of storage with the machines that they give you. They're called G4DNs is what they recommend. Hang on, let me confirm that. They're called G4DNs, right? And they have, it looks like 9 different versions of G4DNs, and you can find it on the Amazon website. But they run from really slow to not as slow. And so working efficiently becomes really important. So the two different kinds of storage they had was something that they called ephemeral and persistent, right? And they're both NVMEs, and the ephemeral storage, we're like, well, what does that mean? And they're like, well, when you log out of your machine, the ephemeral storage gets completely wiped. And we were like, well, that's completely useless. We don't need
I think you don't have to worry about backing up anything. It kind of solves one problem.
This conversation was ephemeral.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This career was ephemeral.
And then the persistent stuff was like, well, it's really slow. and we couldn't get any playback. Like I couldn't even play NTSC on the persistent storage. So we moved to something called Weka, which is it's this thing called object-oriented storage, and it comes in a bunch of different tiers. The first tier is NVMe, so it's a 10 terabyte NVMe RAID, and we got pretty good performance on that. It's not great. It's not. It's better than my first Flame, and it's not as good as an old SSD SAN that we used to have, which was, I think we were running at 6 gigabytes a second. I think this is over a gigabyte a second, but it's not that great. So then when stuff, it has a timer on the storage. And when stuff is old enough, it actually moves to something that's more NAS speed, like 500 megabits per second. And we have 30 terabytes of that. So altogether, Weka is about 40 terabytes for us. And then when it gets old enough on the NAS, it migrates itself to S3, which is their version of like LTO. And so S3 storage in Amazon is this great, it's almost like its own file system. I think it's called S3FS. I don't quote me on this. I don't know, but it's a mountable drive that we can drop stuff to. And it's almost unlimited in the amount of stuff you can store with it. They really just charge you for bringing it down, bringing it back. So we just push everything there. When we archive, we push it to S3. When things are old enough on S3, then they go to something called Glacier, which is really slow and really like you push things there, and it's for stuff that you think there's a remote possibility you're going to need it sometime in the future, in a year or so. It's very cheap. It's super cheap storage. So it's basically like putting it on a hard drive and putting that hard drive in a drawer somewhere. That's what Glacier is. So that's kind of how we set up the architecture in Amazon. The machines themselves were set up within its own, I think it's called the VLAN, its own little network. And so we have a small instance running our Flame server, which is the host machine where all the projects are. And then all of the other machines, we worked with Tom at Gunpowder, and they helped us configure the Flames because the first version of Flame in the cloud didn't actually have the wire, the self-discovery, that you have when you have a bunch of network Flames and they can see each other. Ours didn't have that initially, and Tom helped us hard code that into the configurations for each of the Flames so that everybody can see each other. And then so we set up directories for our stones for each of the machines and the server in Weka on the NVMe. And so sometimes, because of this migration policy, sometimes the projects are you're like, why is it running so slow? And that's because it's moving from S3 back to the NAS or from the NAS back to the NVMe. But if you're using it, it's the first time you use it, it'll move back. If it's not already on the NVMe, then it'll get fast again. So there's that. That was one learning curve we had with Amazon. But the collaboration, the collaborative workflow, that I think that can make a really, an okay artist really great. Because you can work with others, everybody can work to their strengths, and you can build teams really quickly, and you can scale them back down. And that's one of the reasons we like Amazon. The other was that, you got this redundancy in order to build another Flame. Alan is probably like the outlier of how fast he can build the Flame and how really good it's going to be. We're not that way, so they can clone it. And if something happens to the Flame, if it goes down, I don't know how Amazon does it, but they just we can just go back to the instance as it's almost like Time Machine in a Macintosh.
Like a snapshot or something.
Like a snapshot of the machine, and we just go back to that, and it's fine. And if somebody deletes something accidentally, which actually did happen once, so it's been really good.
A couple of questions for you, Josh, that are coming in on the chat here. Brooks was wondering with cloud, I guess this speaks to redundancy. Is like, for you, is the most important redundant thing to have two different connections to the internet, since all that hardware is, you don't have to worry about having two servers and two power supplies and things?
Actually, so the internet here I'm in Montclair, New Jersey, and the internet's very dependable. The power is not. Montclair is one of the first electrified cities in America. So the power grid, because Edison was in the next town over, so the power grid here sucks. It's terrible. Like somebody
Did he
could
have something to
sneeze,
do with electricity?
Selling
somebody
it hard, Josh.
Yeah.
somebody could sneeze, and like
Yeah.
the breakers are on the poles, and they're like these big rods, and they just drop in a storm,
That's
and
great.
it takes forever to. Yeah, so
That's great.
I have a whole house generator, and so that's the thing that keeps the internet going is basically the power to the house. So I do, that's my redundancy. I don't have to. I'd love to get the SpaceX internet. That would be amazing because that's a really cool thing. But I also don't want to spend an extra grand to do that.
Right.
So
I can see
yeah,
that.
the internet's really important. And I see somebody says something about 4G backup, or I think there's.
Oh yeah, it was Finn was just saying that if the shit hits the fan, you can always go
Use a
cellular.
hotspot. Yeah, I don't think it's going to work for Teradici to work over a hotspot. At least not.
It will for RGS. I wish they wouldn't kill that shit. It works for
Yeah.
RGS. I had a scenario where I was driving back from a shoot from sort of NorCal and sitting in a truck getting nauseous as shit, but still could actually drive the flame.
So I have fiber here, and when I go on Wi-Fi with the fiber, I still don't get regular playback. I get pixelating when I'm scrubbing through an image. So and that's at like 300 megabits. So I would say you need a wired connection in order to run any of these remote sessions.
I mean, I can see that would be stressful, but at least you still have better pizza than Randy does in Chicago. Finn was wondering if after using the AWS setup for a bit, do you have any info on actual costs? Or if not specifics, the gotchas, the things that you don't think about when you're migrating to a cloud solution.
Absolutely. So I've got the list of costs. I've also got a link to the Amazon actually has all the costs listed on the website. So if you Google G4DN on the Amazon site, we've got G4DN 8X large machines, and those are running with Tesla cards, and they're about 65 cents an hour. And then we
Josh,
have
how many cores are those? Do you know?
How many what? How many
cores?
cores? I don't know. I think they're 24 cores.
Okay.
And I know that they differ per instance. So you can buy instances that are larger or smaller. But I'll get to this in a second. But they sell them as packages, so that the 8X large is X amount of RAM with X amount of core. There you go. That's the site with X amount of core,
got it.
X amount of, it's like a preset thing. It's not a la carte. And one thing we found out was Amazon has a big convention, like the AWS version of NAB. And when that happened in November, there were no flames.
Sorry, I got ahead of myself.
We couldn't get a
Tech
flame.
talk.
So we went from the flame that we had, which was, you dial in and it spins up and you use it for a few hours and then you spin it back down. We actually went back to them and made a permanent reservation for 2 of them so that we have a guaranteed flame anytime we want to turn on. And so I kind of don't turn it off because I don't trust not being able to get back on.
There've been 2 or 3 very public, very large instances of Amazon being down for 8 to 12 hours during a day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And if that happens, I'm basically twiddling my thumbs because we don't have the storage is up there. The flame is up there. I've got a flame here on my laptop and I can certainly use it, but I don't have access to the data once it's up there. Mm-hmm. So that's absolutely a consideration. That being said, we don't for that price, we don't pay for power. We don't pay for AC. We don't pay for real estate. We don't pay for really much engineering either. We don't have a dedicated person who's dedicated to running the storage and the machines and keeping all those going. We have guys that our engineering team is focused on other parts of the business. They actually don't really do much. There's not much for us to do except call Amazon.
Yeah.
So
Josh, have you guys like spun it up in have spun up like claims in other regions other than the one you're currently in, and like what's that sort of felt like for you?
no, we haven't done that yet, and I've been told to do it. And one of the things on my radar for the next 5 years is I would like to be able to spin up offices in other countries. We did this at Gloss. We actually started an office in Chennai, and it was great because we had this Aspera connection between the two offices, and we could sync.
Sure.
We had 30 flames in Chennai, and we had 7 flames in New York, and they would be doing all the GMAS tracers and shot setups for us, and even conforms, and all that stuff would automatically sync back to because we were using a headless flame workflow. All that stuff would show up in the shared libraries, which was really great. I'd love to be able to do that again with Amazon. So what I've been told is that the Amazon servers worldwide are not what they have in Virginia and LA and actually near Randy in Champagne.
Compound.
Champagne.
Chennai is a neighborhood outside of Cleveland, right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Well,
so
I'm curious, like just pretty selfishly spending my summers back in Stockholm and whatnot, where I know that, obviously there is a pretty fucking serious data center
yes.
in the home of Spotify and other little bits of Swedish tech. So, I mean, it's just interesting to be the notion of like, being able to kind of, open shops where your talent is and having, I think we talked about this a little bit on the list before of like the use cases for me at least seem to be like sort of, resource, instantaneous sort of resource extension and addition and sort of being able to expand, independent of what, physical shit is out there for you to go ahead and rent or buy, but then also just in terms of actually increasing your artist pool based on that. And there could be versions where that makes a lot of financial sense moving forward.
Well,
but I'd be curious to see what the experience is.
Yeah, well, the other thing no one talks about is that most of the cloud services, whether it be Google, AWS, they bill net 90. So you can do a job, right? You can pitch a job, win a job, do the job, get paid by your agency clients net 60, and then 30 days later pay everything.
Yeah.
Pay all of your hardware costs. And so like that's interesting. And so I think the post-COVID babies, like the studios that are coming out recently are using that as an option. And those with, a big substantial investment up front in real estate and electricity and all that, like, it may not make sense yet. So Josh, like what were the prices again? Because I know Google Cloud boxes of like 16 cores are like $400 or $500 a month. And those are a little under spec. What about the AWS stuff?
The AWS, so I think we're in the neighborhood of like 8,000 to 11,500 a year per machine that we're looking at, and I think that's with the permanent reservation that we have, which seems like a lot, but I think that, we spent 50,000 on Z840s, 7 of them. And then we spent another $300,000 on shared storage and networking to get all that stuff to talk to each other at high speed. So
plus heating, cooling, electricity, rent in New York, all that. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things we talked about this a little bit earlier, but you got to be able to bill a certain amount of money beyond as a metric of how much you're spending. And this was something I've been. It's a number that was given to me about 20 years ago by somebody who in accounting. They were like, you need 20 times the revenue of whatever it is that you're spending in order to make the spending, in order to justify it. And if you can go beyond that, even better. So that's that's kind of how I was looking at it. I've got to be
over the lifetime of the hardware, over the lifetime of
the lifetime of the hardware. I'm not really sure that that's what the metric is that they're using at Assembly in the accounting and strategy meetings that they're having. I think that
rarely are.
They'll tell us, won't they?
I don't think they're like, does it work? Can we do next week's job? Yeah, buy it. And we're like, okay. So, but they
New
do
sound
have
effect, Andy?
The bell made an appearance.
they do have a plan for this, and the thing about assembly right now is we're growing very, very quickly, and I think that the ability to collaborate and scale up the office has been one of the big selling points. But I'm kind of jealous of you guys having the access to the machines you guys are using are faster. I benchmarked the Flame this morning in anticipation of the call, and I think that we're about as fast as the M1 laptop, and that's on the higher end of what we're doing, which is not bad, but it's not like the Threadrippers that you guys are using are 3 times faster for sure.
Yeah. And I know this is not a perfect metric. I know everyone hates this metric and the benchmark, but it's the only thing we have to start a conversation. So like the Threadripper Pros, whether it be the 3975 or 3995 or the 5000, those are like the 4-ish minute, and that's usually with either an RTX 8000 or whatever. Mac Pros like 12-ish, 13 minutes. Z840 is about that, and then these cloud machines are typically in the 10 to 15 to 16 minute benchmarks. It could be a third, 3 times as long or 4 times as long, depending on how many cores and what your spend is per month on how many cores you're reserving. So just to give you an idea.
But I've always felt this way, that Flame renders so much faster than anything else out there. Even on if you've got a 5-minute render or a 3-minute render, the extra 2 minutes you're getting on a Flame it's kind of remarkable. I started my career in the 90s in After Effects, and I remember clicking on something and it said, it'd be like about an hour, and I clicked on this one render and it said, it ticked, and it goes about a week.
but I think that's actually a really valid point, and something that doesn't get discussed a lot. I mean, I know that there's not a lot of people. Let's put it this way: I've been in the camp for a while that's been like, okay, Burn was a little bit of a failed experiment. I don't quite understand the need.
I think we just heard Burn dying outside of Alan's car.
It's final death. But it's like stick to RTX Titans in my box, or 2 A6000 RTX, whatever, and I'll just do background reactor and whatnot. But I think with COVID and stuff like that, it kind of my opinion on that sort of, I've been forced to kind of revisit that a little bit, because there's become this sort of balance, like I was saying earlier, that needs to be struck between your performance and your capability. And there's very much a world where I could see it makes a lot of sense to go ahead and actually have machines which are decent spec, decent spec boxes as your front ends, but then actually really investing in sort of heavy lifting shit in the burn farm. Having a couple 5995s with whatever it is, with fucking 3090s or something along those lines, that actually can do double duty for 3D in the evening times, and just switch them over from Backburner into ThinkBox and Deadline. So I think again, it's going to be different strokes for different folks depending what their workflow is, but there is an argument to be made for that front end sort of methodology in a way.
I really want to jump in here because we have made that heavy investment into the kick-ass burn farm. And I highly recommend anybody interested in using Burn, watch my You've Been Burned series called Pay Once, Render Twice. Or Pay Twice, Render Once. Because
so you haven't been completely soothed.
Yeah. Burn has some very serious architectural limitations where you basically render twice for everything you do. So now that I have a P620 with the 3995, I don't really much use Burn.
We found that. Yeah. We bought like a big Burn rack mounted thing with a bunch of machines in it, and we just stopped using it. And that was years ago, because the machines themselves are fast enough to keep the artist's attention, which is really that's kind of the struggle, is that, if you hit a render and it says 10 minutes, you walk away. I'll see artists get up and walk away and go have coffee, and 20 minutes later they'll sit back down because they're trying to time it, and now you've lost that extra time, and it's like you have to resync your mind into your setup. So that's the flow
of those machines. Yeah, because the flow of working on a cloud machine is like you have to slow down a little bit, and that's still 30 to 50 milliseconds to both coasts. So it's like the latency isn't the problem. It's just the guts of the machine. So yeah,
And
it's a different thing.
We didn't talk about it. But one of the downsides, and I'm assuming this is because we're bleeding edge. One of the downsides of the cloud machines is the UI themselves. It's Teradici. You don't have the ability that you do with the full functionality of the keyboard, tablet, all the stuff that you take for granted. Like the Alt key, it doesn't work half the time because of Teradici, not because of the flame, but because it just doesn't take the input. So you find the slower workarounds, and I'm sure there are ways around this. I can see Alan's shaking his head. He's probably got this figured out, but we don't. We're like,
No, sorry, that was I wasn't really reacting, but we do use RGS, and that's the thing that I talk to the HP people about is RGS just works. Like you install it and it works as if you're sitting in front of your machine. The hotkeys work, Alt Tab works, the whole thing just works. And Teradici has some serious bugs that prevent us from using it along the lines of what you're saying, slightly different, but still similar. Where Teradici is like its own environment, and you really have to make very specific considerations and configurations for Teradici. Where RGS, you just install it and it works.
I'm super jealous.
There's also two separate little worlds. So using Teradici in a studio as a KVM extender is much different than using it over the software client remotely. But you're right. Like Teradici was invented to control like Bloomberg financial terminals, right? So like people's computers and spreadsheets could be somewhere. It's not like the Vulkan Death Grip keyboard combos that us knucklehead lame artists need to use. So when we talk to HP and Teradici, they're like, "What? You use Control Alt Shift Enter as a hotkey?" And you know what I mean? Their just minds explode. So that component of it changes the experience, and therefore most of the cloud experiences are less fun and less good for artists. And it's actually a borderline retention problem.
Josh, have you used Amazon's Nice DV protocol at all?
No, I don't think so. Nice,
it's pretty good.
Nice.
That's
Nice
supposed to be nice. I think it's Nice DCV or something. It's supposed to be another high performance protocol that they bought and owned, but I've never used it. It's supposed to be very good though.
When we set up our little foray into the cloud and we're trying out things quite early on, we tried it with Nice. And now, admittedly, I don't think that I think maybe at some point in time we gave it a go with tablet and whatnot, and then just kind of gave up after a while. But the experience was pretty smooth. I mean, like hotkeys were working, all that other shit was, it was much more of that RGS-esque experience and whatnot. But that being said, I've had limited experience with Teradici, and when we tried it, I was not overly impressed, which is why we ended up going RGS in the end. But you could run RGS on your AMI instances as well. I mean, that works. That's a thing.
We asked about it, and we have not received an answer back from them as to whether it works or not. And
it works.
Oh, it does.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I mean, we've done it.
Just
it works fine.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
I wanted to. There are some questions coming in the chat about the cloud stuff. I would like to put those on hold, and we'll revisit them, or we'll come back to it when we jump over to Discord, because we're coming up on 4:00. So I wanted to ask you guys one last question, and then Randy and I'll do our big announcement, and that is, I know. Well, Chris, maybe we should just jump into it right now. No, but it's what do you see as your biggest expense, maybe in the next 6 to 12 months when it comes to hardware? Is it storage? Is it upgrading networking infrastructure? Is it monitoring? Or is it workstations? Chris, we'll start with you.
Oh, fuck. Probably, I think it's probably split right down the middle between networking infrastructure, and workstations. I mean, if I'd be hard pressed, I'd say probably we'll do workstations before we do network.
Mm-hmm. Josh, what about you?
As far as, give me the question one more time. Dan was shooting me notes about like when. Client has comments. Yeah. No, just in the next 6 to 12 months, what do you think is going to be your biggest expense? Or investment? So I'll be honest. I want to develop a plan B for Amazon. So I think that the Amazon stuff has a place in our workflow. But I would, we were talking about yesterday having a co-location. So I would
A
like
private
to
cloud, I mean.
Josh, I was
explore
straight up ready for you to say, "Yeah, we're really thinking about Google."
Have you guys heard of this other company called Google?
Here's the thing. I think that I'm a little worried, and only because we don't have benchmarks on this yet. But as we begin to add users into the shared storage, and because we have this collaborative workflow with everybody, I want to make sure that everybody gets the kind of bandwidth experience that they need in order to function. And that's the part that I don't yet understand, and I'm very afraid of it working. So,
or you're just gonna have to make all your 4K stuff 2K stuff.
yeah, that's another problem. Yeah, that I'm not doing, especially because it's another story. But I think that our future, there are other tiers of Weka. There's more speed that we can add to it, and I'm a little concerned about the cost of like increasing the NVMe storage and delaying the move to the NAS in the algorithm, so that we have more stuff in a bigger NVMe in order to get more bandwidth out of these machines. I'm I don't know. We need to weigh those costs against, just buying a bunch of Mac Studios, putting them in a rack with a massive SSD and network infrastructure and a co-location somewhere, because those machines look insanely good compared to everything else. So that's kind of what we're looking at. 12 months.
What about you, Alan?
Just buying maybe another 2 of the P620s, but our network is super solid. Like I said, we have a 100 gig fiber backbone with 25 gigs to every workstation. And once you get about 1.5 to 1.6 gigabytes a second to each workstation, you're pretty much covered for almost any resolution scenario, apart from 8K. And often the machine itself couldn't even play back 8K, even if it was stored all in RAM. So, I mean, we've always pushed the limit, and we've always bought really high quality stuff. So just probably add 2 more P620s, and that's it. And then, we run our own in-house developed video kind of network to clients' locations. So maybe just expanding that a little bit. That's it.
Other than the Flame food truck, Randy, what about you over the next 6 to 12?
I'm thinking about a new full suspension mountain bike. So year one was all about
You're going to
meeting
buy your
people.
neighbor's house and turn it into a data center, into a private cloud. You
Actually,
already have
that's not
fiber there. I mean, yeah.
Actually, it's not a terrible idea, but man, you have to open a Kickstarter for that.
Think of the taxes.
Things of taxes. Year one was all about meeting people. Year two is all about building stupid room and having a bunch of stuff so I could sleep well and anything could take a dump and I'd be okay. This year, I don't really plan on spending much. I'm looking at GPU prices. Finally, like a RTX A6000 is under $4,700 on Amazon, which is kind of exciting. NVIDIA is always going to come out with something, and I don't want to drop $4,500 on a 2-year-old card, but maybe I will. I've got RTX 6000 now, which is totally fine, but I'm just suffering from a little FOMO, a little fear of missing out on GPUs. But
if it's only 30 seconds faster on the benchmark, I mean, why do it?
Well, but 30 seconds faster for me is 20%. And so, a 20% faster render is really important, especially when you're, a lot of my stuff is like 1,000 and 2,000 frames long. So 20% on a 1,000 frame render goes from, 10 minutes to 8 minutes. And so just that the experience is
Wait,
important.
hold up. What the fuck? 1,000 frames? Let's back up. What kind of work?
So there's some work out there, and it requires a lot of work, a lot of frames.
Yeah. Fair enough.
For us, the biggest reason why we go with A6000s or RTX 8000s is the additional GPU RAM. It helps to prevent the GPU crashing that happens when you're doing motion vector tracking, because there's a memory leak that, as of yet, Autodesk has been unable to track down and fix. So if you're doing a lot of motion vector tracking, eventually the GPU, like the software won't crash, the actual GPU will crash, and you have to reboot the machine. So we haven't had that yet with the 48 gig base cards, because there's enough headroom there to avert the crash.
Yeah. So you just spend $2,500 an extra card per machine just so you don't have to reboot it twice a day. Yeah. Yeah.
For us, it was
Yeah.
almost after every shot. So that's,
Yeah.
and some of our projects are very large. Almost all of our projects are huge, which means our libraries are really deep. We were having
Yeah.
5-10 minute launch times. So imagine you have to do that 10 times a day.
Yeah.
You've just wasted, $200-$300 in artist time sitting there just launching the software.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you remind me of something that I kind of wish that Autodesk was doing is that, it'd be nice if there was some way to process all that stuff through like scripting in the server so that anytime you have shots coming in, that they're automatically going through a motion vector process that's outside of your flame. So all that stuff is ready once you start a job.
There may be. I'm not sure about that. I haven't really delved into the Python stuff like others have.
All right, well, thanks everybody. We're going to continue the tech chat over on Discord. So I want to thank Chris and Josh and Alan for sharing their insight and their wisdom with everybody. And thank you very much, man. It's a conversation that's always going to be ongoing, right?
Cool. I'm not going to make it to Discord, but good chatting with everyone.
Yeah,
good
thanks
seeing
for joining
you,
on. Really appreciate it, Alan.
Go dip your toes in the water for us.
Yeah, enjoy that.
Like, literally and metaphorically.
Yeah.
Take care, man.
Take care.
All right. Let me just switch this view over here to just a split with myself and Randy. Yada yada. Oh. Whenever I do a split screen with Randy McEntee, he always wants to do to make a superhuman, make the perfect flame artist, right? The combination of the two. So we have a pretty awesome announcement to make today. Randy and I, like I said, when we started doing all this stuff with Logik and the forum, it was all, our dream was to be able to do great things for the community and with the community, and we got something I think pretty special here.
We're switching to Resolve.
Randy? We're going to switch over to yeah. Let me turn off the sign here because we're going to switch. Yeah, right. Absolutely. No. We got a pretty big hardware announcement to make.
Yeah,
Randy,
I'm nervous.
You got a call from somebody. Why don't you tell us about the
call?
Okay,
I'm nervous. When I screw this up, just take it over like we practiced yesterday. So, thanks to the community and thanks to our patrons. It's been a really incredible almost 14, 15 months of really evolving the community in new ways. And I know it's kind of been a scary situation, but hopefully today is just a really cool reminder of what happens when we do actually get together, and we can support a couple knuckleheads like us, so that we can spend the time in the mornings before work, during our lunch hour, in between renders, after the job is shipped, at night and the weekends, and put out a bunch of content for great people. And so I got a great call about 4 or 5 months ago from Mr. Robert Hoffman at Lenovo. And he saw the forums. He was really excited. He said, look, I really want to support you guys, and let me know how I can help. And I said,
never shy. Randy was never, never one to have been shy to dream big and ask for
Yeah, I said, good. Send me some shit. Send me some stuff. I want a crate of stuff to give away, because the community is hungry for it, and frankly, you guys deserve it. So we got some stuff to give away today. It's a pretty big deal, and I'll start with the first piece of it.
Here we go.
It's a Lenovo P620 keyboard.
Wow, a Lenovo P620 keyboard.
Yeah, unbranded box.
Is that like something you can buy separately, or does it come paired with other aspects of the Lenovo P620?
Well, there's another accessory box.
Is that a pointing device of some sort?
A Lenovo 3-button mouse.
3-button mouse with the trademarked red scroll wheel. That's and a power cable. This is amazing.
Power cable.
So, Randy, let me see if I follow you here, because there's been a lot. You've revealed a lot so far. We have a keyboard for a Lenovo P620, and we also have a mouse and an electrical cable for a Lenovo P620. Those by themselves, I think, would make an amazing thing to give away. Wait a minute. Randy, can you roll your chair backwards a little bit, please? And now it looks like you've got, if I'm not mistaken, a Lenovo P620. Like
I do,
the
Mr.
full thing.
Milkovich. I do. So
What are the specs
Robert
on that
Hoffman at
bad boy?
Lenovo sent us a Lenovo P620. It has a terabyte internal PCI 4 Samsung SSD. Has 8 sticks of 16 gig DDR4 air critical memory running at 3200 megahertz. Actually, maybe it's 28.
Randy's not reading this. He's been rehearsing. He really rehearsed this. Yeah.
Hey, I did an ad for Lenovo. I'm qualified.
We've seen
It's a couldn't get the end of that. It is a Lenovo ThinkStation P620 series workstation. It is powered by AMD Threadripper Ryzen Pro 3975. That's the 32 core thingy, the 3975 WX Pro, and it has an NVIDIA RTX A6000.
So that is a top of the line, spec'd out.
Yeah, it's a
system
legit machine.
Capable from running Flame. Amazing. Well,
Yeah.
I said at the top of the show that we could not do what we do here at Logik without the support from our patrons on Patreon. And so what Randy and I talked about doing when we got this box from Robert at Lenovo is what should we do with it? And we wanted to say thank you to one of our patrons and give them essentially a brand new Flame.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That's what we're doing. We don't need another one.
Well, you certainly don't need another. We thought, well, that's what we're doing today. We're giving away a Flame, ladies and gentlemen. We're giving away a fully spec'd Lenovo P620. And we really couldn't be happier to be able to do this. It's like the culmination of 2 years of Logik, of trying to give back to to this community that has given so much to so many people. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna do what I do best, which is
Play a really crummy sound effect.
man, this is it. Right? Thank you. I do
Sorry.
it, we all have our
Sorry.
gifts, damn it. So I'm
Did you
gonna
say
play this
GIF
drum roll
or
again.
GIF? It's pronounced
I'm gonna-
GIF.
I'm gonna play
just
this
trying to
drum
get you
roll
to cough.
again, and we're gonna announce. There you go, Randy. You see, dreams do come true. All right, we're giving away a Flame, ladies and gentlemen, to one of our patrons, and that patron that is going to receive this brand new Lenovo P620 ThinkStation, courtesy of Lenovo, is going to be ready. Wait for the drum roll to end, and then announce the name of that lucky patron. Ready? Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm nervous.
We're still broadcasting, right? Jeff, I see you in the... Okay, good. Here we go.
Who cares? Just give it to him.
The Flame is going to...
Brooks Tomlinson.
You just heard it right. You heard it from Randy McEntee himself. Brooks Tomlinson, I see you out there. I see your name in the chat. You, my friend, are getting a Flame. You're getting a Lenovo P620. And we want to thank... Hold on, let me play... let me bring back... Hold on, I think... Could someone... does anyone have eyes on Brooks? He may have passed out. I don't see him in the chat here. This is just a great day. This is a really, really great day. Look what's going on in the chat there. Wait, let me give you some more applause. Randy, how are you feeling right now?
I'm excited.
Oh,
I'm a little nervous about the FedEx bill, but screw it. Like, let's just get it to him because I can't wait to see it show up.
We just heard from Brooks, whose response was, "What? That's it. That's right, Brooks. You're getting a Flame, man. You're getting a P620, courtesy of Lenovo. It's coming your way as a thank you." And again, we want to thank all of our patrons who make Logik possible, and we couldn't do it without you. So we're going to head over. You know what? Before, hold on. Wow, look, the chat is absolutely blowing up. So let me clear this out. Oh, Brooks is saying his jaw is on the floor. Well, I can't wait to see that over on Discord. All right. I am going to wrap this up. I'm going to pick 3 people at random for some Logik merch, and I will email you directly.
It's all downhill. It's all downhill from here,
just
right?
email you directly. And let's do this. We're going to close out the show. We're going to head on over to Discord. I just want to let everybody know what is coming up on our next Logik Live. And let's go back to this, and then we'll go to this. We're off next week, but Saturday, May 7th at 3 p.m., we're doing a step-by-step guide to Synthesize with our friend Sean Sams. And then Saturday, May 14th at 3 p.m., we're going to talk Flame 2023 with the Flame dev team. You do not want to miss that. It's going to be excellent. We're already starting to talk about some amazing Flame-related stuff for the summer. We're going to do another Summer of Flame here on Logik Live. I want to thank, if you haven't signed up for the forum, please do. I'm speeding through this because I want to get on Discord and talk to Brooks. The show's going to continue over on the Discord chat, so everybody should just head on over to forum.logik.tv and jump on Discord so we can congratulate Brooks and then continue to tech talk. This episode of Logik Live will be up on the site later today. I'm excuse me. Until my voice comes back, I can't do any more. I can't do. And by the way, if you're ever not feeling well, don't worry. Randy McEntee will call up and try and
just try to make you laugh.
So,
I'm so not helpful.
Check out
cast number 26 with Cristobal Valenzuela, CEO and co-founder of Runway ML, available on Apple, Spotify, and podcast. Logik Live, subscribe because we're almost there to Joel Osis. So come on, we're only like 4,000 behind Joel Osis.
That's right.
Thank you to our
thank
patrons.
you to our patrons.
Patreon.com/LogikTV. Go ahead and get the merch store. No, we don't make any money on it, and the stuff is good. Call Jack for tech support at jack@flametech.com.au. And he's laughing because we should have done this years ago. And
you have the gift.
And the NAB 22 sale up to 50% off everything at Boris Effects, limited time only. And
thank you, AJA.
AJA.
And thank you to Synesys.
Does it drive you crazy when you do that?
Randy, you did an amazing job. Thank you much. We'll see everybody over on Discord. Congratulations to Brooks. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Alan. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next time.